treat for y'all this week. I've got Judge Erleigh Norville Wiley. She is the current criminal district attorney for the county of Kaufman. And she took over the reins of that position after Mike McLelland and his wife were gunned down in their home in March of 2013. A couple of months before, Mark Hasse was killed, leaving his vehicle, going to work at the courthouse in the morning. About 8:30 in the morning on the way to work, between his parking space where he parked his car and the courthouse. This is the chief felony prosecutor, Mark Hasse, for Kaufman County, and then the elected official, Mike McLelland, criminal district attorney for Kaufman County, and his wife were killed in their home. So not only was the elected official, but the chief prosecutor were both killed within 2 months of each other. Someone had to step up and take over the reins of the Kaufman County Criminal District Attorney's Office. At this time, the killer was still loose, and there was talk about whether it was an Aryan Brotherhood, retribution or revenge type killings. There was talk about who it might be. But someone had to step up and take over the reins of the criminal district attorney's office, and Judge Wiley was brave enough to do so. She stepped up, and within 15 days of the McLellands being gunned down in their home, Judge Wiley, she turned in her robe. She was a sitting county court at law judge, and stepped down from the bench and took over the reins of the Kaufman County Criminal District Attorney's office. This took a great deal of bravery. It took a great deal of guts, and she did it. You'll get to hear her story. You get to hear how she became a lawyer. You get to hear about her background in Kaufman County and her growing up there, and she's a hometown girl, and why she did it, and Homeland Security protection, 24-hour they gave her. She did, it's just a fantastic story. It's almost something out of a John Grisham novel. And, you get to go through the arrest of the killer, the prosecution of the killer, the fact that, Erleigh Wiley was on the killer's hit list, was next on the hit list, came out. So it's almost something out of a John Grisham novel. So, name of her book is A Target on My Back, A Prosecutor's Terrifying Tale of Life on a Hit List. It's on Amazon.com right now. You can purchase her book. There'll be a link on it at my post on my website. So I can't wait to give you this podcast and let you hear Judge Wiley's story. First, let me give a shout out to my sponsors. My number one sponsor is Fresh and Rico. Chef Eugenio Torres. I couldn't have lost 187 pounds in 11 months if it had not been for Chef Torres and freshandrico.com. He provides meal prep, food prep meals for me and my wife. She's lost 25 pounds, and they're health conscious meals. 300 to 500 calories are made fresh. You just pop them in the microwave for 2 hours, and you got your quick dinner that's health conscious. That'll help you lose weight, and he can meet any of your dietary restrictions. So if you're in the Ellis County area, or you're in a surrounding area to Ellis County, you can order it at his website, fresh, the letter N, rico.com. That's fresh, the letter N, rico.com. Or you can reach out to him on Instagram. He's got a very active Instagram account. I believe it's under Fresh and Rico. If not, it's under Eugenio Torres. So check out Fresh and Rico. I always got to give a shout out to DDP and his DDPY program. I couldn't have lost 187 pounds without him. I've currently been doing DDPY now, going on in 10 months, and I've done it every day for October, and just makes me feel great. And I'm doing things I never could have done and haven't been able to do in 30 years. So check out DDPY and the DDP Yoga Now app. You will not be unhappy with that service. The music that you brought us into this podcast and that you'll end the podcast with was written by and played by Dylan Sowers. He volunteered to give me some music to help my podcast. And thank you, Dylan. He worked with his wife at the DA's office, and he plays at some of the local bars and coffee shops and different things. If you get a chance to see Dylan, check him out. You'll be real happy to see him. Thank you for the music, Dylan. It's awesome. And without further ado, we'll give you. I'm ready to give you Judge Erleigh Norville Wiley. All right, I'm here with Erleigh Wiley, Erleigh Norville Wiley. She is the current Kaufman County Criminal District Attorney, and not only is she that, but she's also the first African American Criminal District Attorney in the state of Texas.
That's right.
And she's recently written a book called "A Target on My Back," and we'll put a link to her Amazon page if you want to buy it. We my wife and I both read it, and it's an outstanding book about her experiences with the Kaufman murders, and we'll let her talk about that and how she took over the reins of the Kaufman County Criminal District Attorney's office, but we're excited to have her. We're really it's a great opportunity for this little podcast to have someone of her stature. And so we're really excited, and we welcome Miss Wiley to the podcast. Judge Wiley, how do people refer to you?
You just call me Erleigh Vance while we're doing this. And thank you for having me, and thank you for the people that are sitting in today. I appreciate it. The employees that are people that I get to work with, they call me Judge Wiley, but that's fine. But it'd be just real good if we all just said Mary and Vance.
Yeah. This is informal today.
Kevin. Okay, it was a test. Okay, I got everybody's name now. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess once you're a judge, it's kind of like if you're president, you're still the...
They do. You know, people do still call you. I was a judge for 10 years. I retired off the bench.
Talk to you a little bit
I'll
more.
sit up. I retired
There
from the
you
bench.
go.
So I just hit 10 years, and then I was appointed by Governor Perry. So, yeah, there's always that if you got defeated or not. But I'll tell you, anybody that I worked in front of that I know is a judge, I still refer to them as judge. And we'd go to judges' conferences, and I'd see judges, and some people you feel comfortable calling their first name, but there are some people that I always will call judge. Judges from Kaufman, think about Judge Ashworth or something like that. I don't think I'd ever just say, "Hi, Glenn, how are you?" No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no.
Like old coaches.
Right.
Always coach.
That's right.
Yeah.
My dad's an old coach, and it's been years since he's coached. But he's from Kaufman, and we grew up in Kaufman, and so people still call him Coach.
And that's a good point. That you grew up in Kaufman, born and raised.
I am. People always say when I get introduced at things, and they say, "Oh, you're the DA in Kaufman. How long have you been there?" I said, "Well, most of my life, except for going to college and working in the Dallas DA's office." And it kind of sounds boring, like you never got far from home. But I was born there. I went to school there. My mother was actually from Kaufman. She graduated from Terrell, which is a town right there in Kaufman County. The schools were segregated, but she graduated from Burnett High School. My dad was stopping through to teach for a semester because a teacher had got hurt, I think, in an automobile accident, a weird, freaky accident. And so to get my time frame, I'm sure that was the early 50s. And he came through, and they met, and he never left, and they had kids and a family there, and there's 4 brothers and me, and we were all born and raised there.
All first through 12th grade in Kaufman schools?
Absolutely. As not that exciting, I went to Kaufman Elementary, middle school. They didn't have names then. You know, now everybody's named after somebody, but then it was just elementary, middle school, and Kaufman High School. Oh, yeah, I was all in the band, a cheerleader. But I always liked, we were talking before we went on the air, this is the first book, but I have to say when I was younger, I loved to read. I loved the library. It was a way to escape. We have 4 brothers. I played some sports, but I spent a lot of time reading. And I loved history. I did. I liked history, and I liked biographical and stories and going someplace. And I'd go to the library a lot. If my parents were in town, they'd drop me off at the library, and I'd get those books, and I'd read them, and I'd be trying my brothers to leave me alone. But then I wrote. See, somebody said, did you write right before? I said, well, I did. I wrote. It's corny, but I wrote plays. I would write plays. And here's the corniest part. I loved watching the old Perry Masons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Perry Mason, the black and white ones.
The old one, yeah. Of course, I'm prosecutor. I know Berger was getting his butt kicked all the time, right? I didn't really get it. Hamilton,
Paul
Berger.
Drake.
Paul,
Paul
yeah.
Drake.
Never just Paul Drake.
Well, he had 2 really good short names, so you could say Paul Drake.
Yeah.
And my husband, who's an attorney, says, I think they must have thought of that name, Hamilton Burger, Hamburger. He was just a hamburger. I'm like, what? Nobody thought of that. You just made that up. So I had made up probably about middle school. By the time I got to high school, I had more activities. I was doing cheering and band. But in those long days with school and summers, I would write these plays, and they would be set in the context of like a jury and just something I'd seen on TV, and I would replicate that. I thought, isn't that so corny?
Do you still have any of those?
awesome.
You know what? My mother has passed, but I need to go through some boxes. She kept, we found some stories, very simple stories that I had written in 2nd and 3rd grade. But those plays, I don't know if she has them. But the stories, I had a teacher that one of the schools is named after, Helen Edwards, and she wanted us to start writing in 2nd grade, like writing 2 or 3 paragraph stories. I mean, they would be simple stories. Write something about your summer or fish. And so I grew up having people that really wanted you to write and wanted you to express yourself. And so I did. And I'll have to, you know what, Vance, I'm going to go look for those because my daddy doesn't throw away anything.
Yeah.
Now, your dad was a football coach in Kaufman.
Daddy was the football coach in Kaufman, and I think like all good football coaches, he had a degree in science or something. He taught biology.
And your mother was the school nurse and
She
went
was
around?
school nurse, and she was actually the county school nurse. So she had to have a car and would go to all the little cities in the county. And even when they integrated the schools, I was told, because that was before my time, or right as I was coming, I don't remember, she was still the school nurse. So I think back then they did get people shots. Now, they just really maintain health records. But school nurses then made sure the kids had shots and gave them. So I can remember my mother's car always smelled like alcohol. Because they didn't,
Rubbing alcohol.
Yeah, not the kind you drink. Not that one, yeah. But the kind you rub on kids. And, yeah, she would go to the schools and she would vaccinate kids. And and my mother was a real tall lady. I'm still hoping I'll grow. I think it's over. But she would vaccinate all those kids in the county. And people now will still, that are that older generation, they see me, they'll walk up and they'll be rubbing their arm. They're like, oh, you look like a shorter version of your mother, and they'll know who I am. They go, oh, I remember Miss Norvell. She used to give me shots. So Mom and Dad, they always had a sense of service and doing for the community and doing for the whole community. We were African Americans, we didn't change. We still are. And it was the community. What can you do for the community? Be the school nurse, be the coach. And we were the coach of a little town. You're taking kids, you're giving them rides, because a lot of parents didn't have cars. And we spent a lot of time involved with the sports program.
Now there's something, center there, kids emergency center there, named after your mother. What is, tell them what that is.
Well, Kaufman County Emergency Children's Shelter is the name of the shelter, and under that umbrella is the A. Fern Norville Center, and it's all on the same campus there. Probably I was in college, so it was somewhere in the 80s. She was president of the Children's Shelter Board, and they kept talking about we need a shelter in this East Texas community. And it's an emergency shelter that takes in kids that are abused and neglected for a minimum of 60 days to get stable, and a stable home if there's an allegation of abuse or neglect by a parent and there's no place to take them in the immediate family. So there's a safe place they can go. And they, back 30 years ago, saw the need, and they built that community with the support of the commissioners that provided the property. They built a children's shelter that can house up to 20 kids. It's an amazing venture because people, my mother was the kind, I don't want to go to a meeting and just talk about something. If we're going to do something, then I'll stay on the board. But if we're going to talk, I got something else to do. And she wasn't alone. There were a lot, and you hate to list people because you'll leave somebody out. But I think about Miss Halsey that was over in Terrell, and you had a good friend of my mother's, Betty Bobovec, and that I just remember. And of course, the huge fundraiser at that time, and well known in the community, was Ray Raymond. And there were, like I said, there's many other, but those stick in my mind as a kid. Said we're going to build this, and they did. And they're licensed with the state. And they take in kids really all over the state in North Texas because emergency shelters fell on hard times. As the state there's only a certain amount of money for kid. And I think they really wanted, it looks like a house. I don't want to give out the location, but it looks more like a home. And so there's a foundation attenuated to that. So if anybody ever wants to give, it's a very worthy organization because that foundation supplements what the state gives. So those kids can go to the refrigerator with that supplement anytime they want. They get an allowance for doing their chores. They whatever they get while they're there, they get to take it with them when they go. So I think they've got a great idea and a concept.
If someone wanted to donate, how would they find the organization?
That's great. The Kaufman County Children's Shelter, if you put that in, or A. Fern Norville Center, it's going to populate in your search engine. And hopefully, if I haven't looked at it recently, but I'm pretty sure there's a donation link right there. They can do that. Some people say, I don't know about money, but money always helps. They can donate online, or there's always a need list. There it is right there on the top. There's always a need list where there's things that they may need. And that was born out of just the need.
Yeah, the website is norvillecenter.com. NORVILLE center.com.
There it is. Thanks, friends, for saying that and finding it.
Yeah.
And there is a donate button up at the right. That's my mom.
Oh, the donate button up at the right corner?
Yeah, that's my mother.
And how it began.
And
his children shall have a place of refuge. Proverbs 14:26. Click on the photo and see how it all began.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
When'd your mother pass away?
My mother passed away the same year my oldest son was born, and Brad was born in 1994. And so, she never got to meet her grandkids. We miss her. It's been a long time, but you never forget. It was Martin Luther King weekend.
Oh, wow.
You know what? I'll put a link of this on the post on my website.
Thank you. I think as people ask, hey, what can you do? It's local. I mean, in the sense that you guys are right next to us. It's a local organization. Mm-hmm. It is. I think it's well run. Our director, Larita, she always likes to make mention of Mother and kind of what she would be like. But Mother was never a director. She was a board member. But we have a great director, Larita. It just does an awesome job. She loves the kids. You go there, and you got a picture on the website from the back, so the kid's identity. But there's televisions and video games, and in those last years when I was at home, because by the time it was created, I was in law school. Not law school, but in college. It was just a part of our life. It was a project. This is something we're going to do. and we're going to get this done. And they did. And if you got a leader, people usually follow a good idea.
When did you decide to become a lawyer?
I don't know, because my mother was a nurse, and I think she secretly wanted me to be a doctor, but I don't like blood. And I knew that wasn't my gift to help people. I started doing presentations in 4-H club. We were part of 4-H, and they had where you would do different speeches or demonstrations. And if you won, you ended up being at A&M, even though I went to Texas Law School, but I'm not anti-Aggie. So it's just...
You're the Tech undergrad,
I
too.
went to Tech undergrad. Tech's getting beat today. It was not pretty. Yeah. So I think that I first started speaking with 4-H. I was I don't know how many kids are in 4-H now, but it was really good for us in a rural community that a lot of people showed. My brothers might have showed. I know my oldest two brothers did show some livestock, but I kind of did the demonstrations and some food stuff. My mother was always trying to make me a lady. She really was, bless her heart. And so I did that, and I thought, I don't mind talking after I got over that initial nervousness. And then when we got to high school, we had the different opportunities to do the UIL competitions and the debate club. And I think I did debate, and I remember also doing, like, I don't know if they still do it now, like extemporaneous. They give you a topic. Now I'm sure they put you on the computer, but then you'd have to go and research. They'd put the books and the magazines. You remember those times, and you'd put together a quick. I was at Hillcrest for one of those. One time we did some extemporaneous and had to do debate. But I think that's where the thought, I don't know if I ever told everybody out loud, I just who you are and how you're raised. I mean, you see, I'm not a civil rights lawyer, obviously, but you see civil right abuses. I was just at that cusp of an age where I can't say that. I mean, besides somebody calling you an unfortunate name as a group, not really. I didn't, but I felt my parents' upbringing. I mean, which is different than my kids. It's one thing to say your grandparents walked to school, or things were hard for them, or they were discriminated. But in my upbringing, my parents, because I have older siblings, were born in the late 20s. So we know what that was. So growing up, you wanted, how can I help people? What could I do to help somebody? If I was a lawyer, then I have the right to, in your mind, when you're young, help with an injustice. I didn't think I'd be a prosecutor, but somewhere in there, I mean, you'd have to say the stars, or people like Martin Luther King growing up and Thurgood Marshall later. You'd have to, somewhere in the recesses of your mind, and John F. Kennedy, those people were such stars as far as the civil rights movement and moving it forward. And then you become more educated and you learn more about the real struggle. And you absorb that, or I absorbed that, and thinking about that.
You know, I was born in '64, and a friend of ours, Polly Williams, recently told me that my class,
our class was one of the first integrated.
Was the first integrated that started at first grade all the way through.
That's right.
And before that, and I didn't even know that until this year, that we were the first one that started first grade all the way through.
Well, that's interesting, Vance, because in Kaufman, I was born in '63, and so in Kaufman, because my parents were in the education system. I think it was optional. But the year I started, they closed what would have been the colored or the black or the other separate school. That's what they would have been named then, where African American kids went. And when I started, I remember, because it was '69, '70, it was the astronaut. I mean, that was a big deal. I mean, the year before, somebody had landed on the moon, and then we were starting in '70. And of course, the interesting thing is, for the kids, we never knew different, right?
Yeah.
It was the adults that had the problem. It wasn't us. We didn't have a problem with it. And everybody thought something, but I'm sure, like Kaufman County and Ellis County, it was, and many other small counties across East Texas, Northeast Texas, people integrated peacefully. Dallas was a little different. It was a little harder with the busing. But yeah, and we grew up seeing that change. And in my household, it wasn't anything negative. I don't ever remember anything negative said about other races, but just to be aware of your surroundings and just to know. My parents often said we enjoyed our family. We enjoyed the benefits of an integrated society. You could pick where you wanted to live, but many people, I think we've seen, have got left behind a little bit.
Well, do you remember when the time was you decided I'm going to go to law school?
Yeah, I was at Tech, and I had got out of Tech. That's when I was smart. I later became less smart. I was tired. So I went to law school, and that was when we first started doing dual credit and going to summer. I'd gotten out and was done.
You want to pause, Kevin?
I'd gotten out, was done in about 3.5 years, and I thought I can get into law school. People were talking about it. So it went from just a concept of kids. A lot of people go, wait a year or two. I had a business degree and I had a plan, was going to interview. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and apply to law school. And so I had a little time because law school wasn't going to start till the following August or September, whenever, at UT. And I remember that they had, I don't think they do it anymore. It wasn't a quarter system like Baylor, but they were having a summer program in May. They were going to start the summer program. And for everybody that wanted to get out of law school quick, that was the thing. Law school was so different then. I mean, University of Texas, or now known Texas Law, they had 500 students in that law school. They are down to like a 320s, 350s. Law school's different. It's more,
really?
Yeah. They've downsized. So we were crammed in there. I got accepted, and I was accepted for the fall. But they said, since you're available, if you're available, because a lot of kids would have to graduate and then 2 weeks later go to law school. And I started law school in May.
I read somewhere that your undergraduate degree was in finance.
It was. You'd think I could balance my checkbook.
Yeah. What were you going to do? What were the plan? What was your plans to do with a finance degree?
In finance, what I liked the most, I hated the aspect in finance of the hard numbers, like the accounting classes you had to take with the finance degree. Mm-hmm. But I liked the track, and there it wasn't divided because they had the Rawls Business School. But I did now. That's what they call the business school. But I like the economics aspect of it, the investment part of it. So I didn't want to work in a bank, and I didn't know if I could get to New York City in a big investment firm. I probably would have had to, if I'd have stayed on the business track, get an MBA. No, I was going to give it a whirl and try to go to some investment firm and just see because I liked that side of it better than number crunching somewhere. I didn't want to do that. So I might have been a certified financial planner or analyst. So that was also a plan, because a lot of people warned me it's going to be hard to get in law school. My grades were good, and we all took the LSAT. Yeah, my grades were okay, but I had pushed through. But by the time I was getting to the end, I was getting kind of sorry. So I'm glad I got in. You big push, and you hadn't taken off and going all around to get out. But Austin was also going to law school was a good experience. People were nice. It was Austin's a different place than Lubbock, Texas.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So besides the topography of being flat, I mean, and West Texas has different accents than we do, but nicest people. But I mean, Austin was wide open, fun, and it's uncool now, if y'all didn't know it, to go to 6th Street. The kids go down.
Yeah, they go. I can't even tell you.
Our
oldest is at UT,
and 6th Street's like, oh, mom, oh, dad, yeah. So, but 6th Street was happening, and the bands, and going to Maggie Mae's, and hanging out, and if I wasn't studying,
yeah. We went all 4 years of our high school. Our basketball team went to state.
Oh,
all 4 years.
Really?
They won it our senior year. So it was fun to go. It was fun to go to Austin.
Okay, let me get this right. Waxahachie, 1980
80 through 83.
83.
We went to state every year.
And y'all won it.
Our senior year, we won it.
And did y'all partake in any activities in Austin, Texas?
I know I certainly did. I wasn't part of the basketball
team.
Go to
6th Street.
I don't think we made it to 6th Street. I think
never left.
We just roamed around.
Well, and back then, the drinking age was lower.
Yes, it wasn't like your statutes run on all your misconduct.
Well, I remember going to
the
Adobe Mall or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Adobe Dorm.
Adobe, yeah.
We had our senior year, our buddy, his cousin, John Solomon, was in the Adobe Dorm. We went down there a couple of times and watched some football games.
That sounds like fun.
It was a great place.
I want you to know Kevin was nervous coming over here for you. He had visions of being arrested or
Heaven.
Haven't had good luck with law enforcement.
I don't believe that.
No, that was in younger days.
I don't believe that. No problem. And I'm pretty much out of my jurisdiction. You need to be worried about your cousin. Not me. He's an ADA over here. I'm good.
He couldn't even get me out of my troubles.
Well, he's a prosecutor. What do you think?
Yep.
No.
But, all right. So after law school, you went to the Dallas DA's office.
I did. It was a fluke.
How'd you get there?
It was a fluke. It was, it had been a God thing. It's been a great career path. My background being in business would draw that kind of job for me. So my brother worked at, now long gone, but y'all will know these names, Box Crow Cement. It was Trammell Crow.
Over there in the middle of the...
Yeah, y'all know middle because the plant was here. Mm-hmm. And it's
been around a while.
I'm not saying anything. We've already thrown our birthday numbers out. And Clovis Box. And Clovis has passed on, and obviously Trammell Crow Sr. too. His son's still here. But they had my brother worked for Clovis Box, started out in the oil business in Oklahoma. And then he still sells cement. I had to get that right, not concrete, cement. And that company's long been subsumed or bought by Wholesome and something. It's a new name now. They're a European company. But he said, they're looking for in-house corporate counsel. Let me present your resume. So in the summers, because I was tired of going to school all summer, that was original plan. I was going to crank out in 2.5 years something stupid, be a lawyer by the time I was 24, and I'll never forget. A friend said, and then what are you going to do? I mean, what do you know at 24? I started at 21. It didn't happen. I slowed down. And in the summers, I clerked. I was offered a job, and some of it, I think, was the business background. It was in-house corporate counsel, and it was he had several holding companies, OKC, and there was an oil company, and we worked on, I was looking back, a really big litigation that ultimately we won. I was looking back at that litigation on appeal about leases and, kind of dry work, but it was good work. And that was, their offices were over there by the Galleria, the new Galleria, if it had been built or not. There were some gold buildings over there. Mm-hmm. And Frisco, Preston Road was 2 ways. And all you had was that tree farm going out there and the Abbey. It's just crazy. And that was, I clerked there, and I had clerked there the second summer. I also worked because I had to work. There were 5 of us, and there were 3 of us in school at the same time. So I worked and had a little scholarship from Texas, but I worked at the city attorney's office. And so that was another option. When I could do the city attorney and kind of go into that as a full career, but I didn't want to stay in Austin. It was too expensive. Nothing like it is now. So when I took the bar and I passed it, was I going to accept a job from my clerkship? That was my career path. To me, it was kind of boring. It was a bunch of old people. They're probably younger than I am now, but I thought it was, and it was very corporate and very structured, like super structured then. It was definitely the, guys were the bosses and the women were out front. And, even in 85, it was like that. 88 is when I graduated. And then 89, when I took the bar, because we took a trip before. So I'm living in Dallas with some girlfriends over in the M Streets. And I never forget, Sherry Wallace says to me, you need to apply at the DA's office. I'm like, I don't really know anything about criminal law. I took a juvenile justice clinic in Texas, and I loved it, but I don't know anything about really doing criminal law. She goes, well, you don't have to know anything. They're going to teach you everything you need to know at misdemeanor in Dallas. And I said, why would I want to do that? I probably could work this job offer. And back then it was going to be big money, 50 or 60,000. That was big money, in 89, 90, because now we're getting into the fall because the February bar and waiting on my results. And I had passed the bar by then and was working with a guy because I was trying to get that corporate job. They were talking about, we can bring you on, but let's wait until the new year in 90, because I graduated in 88, took a trip to the bar in 89, and so time's moving. And she said, because we were so fortunate back then, you don't have a lot of debt, and it is the most fun you'll ever have. Now, tell me if that's a compelling reason for a career choice. Yeah. So, not like it is now, where these huge job interviews and all of this. I put on a suit, and I took her advice. I didn't have a firm offer. Of course, I got the offer from the folks over the corporate office after I got the DA's position. It was a lot more money, but I thought, I'm going to do this DA thing. But anyway, so I went over there with a suit and filled out the paperwork, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And turned it in and was getting ready to leave. And I'll never forget, it was a guy named Mike Gillette. He had some time to see me, and I talked to him. It was just that uneventful. He didn't offer me a job or anything, but I don't know. Maybe they were looking for me. I don't know.
You never know what changes your career path, and it's weird.
It was as simple as this young lady saying, "I work there. I love it. I think you would do well there." And so Sherry Wallace suggested that to me. And she's now long been married, so that's not her last name anymore. But that's how I know her. And we had fun. We lived in that little house, and one friend worked for a family law firm, Mary, and Kim was going to move to Tyler. So she was just finishing up some things, and I was going to go work in North Dallas for Mr. Box. And instead, I went to the Dallas DA's office.
Now, it sounded like, from what I could creep on the internet, was that you followed in your mother's footsteps on wanting to help abused kids at the DA's office.
I did. I did the trajectory in Dallas is you start and you need a law license, but besides that, they just throw you in a court, and you start on smaller cases, Class B misdemeanors. It's hard to really mess those up because you're going to have a trained person that's been in that court for many months or a year that's going to be your supervisor, and so they walk you through. But once you kind of, I guess the word's matriculate or get up, and then you become a boss, then that's where you really start thinking, what am I going to do in the DA's office? And I was asked to go to child abuse. And in that sense, I found it kind of interesting, ironic. My mother was a school nurse, but her real passion was helping abused kids. And here I was as an attorney. I was drawn to that. And, it was so rudimentary compared to where we know in our knowledge about child abuse. That was, frankly, 25 years ago in the DA's office in the early 90s, 92. That's different than we were just doing closed circuit. We had outcries, but we didn't have all the tools that we have now. And the experts we had were good, but we've learned so much. and the division was small, but it was a challenge, and it was really fascinating work. It was clear who always was the bad guy, you know. Now, I will tell you, just like in any case, sometimes you found people that were part of a divorce, and there might have been some help people create allegations.
Less than truthful.
So, you know, it wasn't always, oh, this guy's always guilty. We really did try. Even then, we were able to weed out some bad cases. People that were, through their attorneys, willing to step up and take lie detectors and then find out later that there was a big motive or payoff. I remember a few of those too. Probably the thing that I never thought I would do, which was still involving kids, was you hit a wall when you do that, or I did. Some people have a different length. That's all they do, and they have been in child abuse for years. There's a lot of great prosecutors that have been in that area, and that is their love, their passion. But about after a year and a half, and I went and talked to actually the DA, who was John Vance, who had hired me. I said, I think I've done enough. And he said, okay, you know, we don't have a court right now. We'll flip you in a MAC court, and then we'll look for a court to put you in. I understand people get burnout. And then he might have called me back, but I remember he said, we got an opening, but it's not MAC court and it's not a regular felony court. And I said, okay, what is it? And he said, it would be to go to the juvenile courts. Well, in the Dallas DA's office, you go to the juvenile courts, you've done something wrong. I mean, it's because, you know, everybody wanted to be a hot shot and try big felony cases. And I remember saying, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be in a juvenile court. And he said, well, there's more money involved. And I don't know what goes on over there, which he did, because John Vance was very accomplished, and he was a Court of Appeals judge. But he was wise enough to just give me some good advice. He said, it'll be a good place. If you don't like it, you just come back over here and we'll move you back over. But when people go over there, they never come back. I don't know why. So I went to a juvenile court, and I ended up in my career loving it and became a supervisor of the child welfare division in the family courts in Dallas, which was 14 courts because it was 7 district courts and 7 associate courts. And so I did a little juvenile, but really it was the child welfare because it was the civil side of those endangerment issues of kids.
And that included the CPS work and the
CPS.
Civil stuff.
The civil stuff, right. I didn't, you know, the office even in then, because now we're getting currently the end of the 90s, early 2000s, was large enough that the juvenile did their own and the child welfare. And then they had the juvenile courts, and then ultimately I went to the family courts to do the DR, the child abuse that arose out of a DR, SAPs are involving the kids, or suit affecting the parent-child, I shouldn't use acronym, relationships over in the domestic relation courts.
You know, I did that for a while, was getting appointed on the CPS cases.
Did you like it?
No.
Yeah.
No. There's some of the worst facts are the worst, you know.
I have a story on that one.
Yeah.
My man here, I'd always go in, kind of mess with him, you know. How can you represent this guy after you know what he's done? Well, he's out of law school. He's just starting up his own business, and he says, well, everybody's entitled to their the best defense,
right?
You know, they could. And, you know, that sounded good when we were in the office and everything. And I was working for him doing car accidents and stuff. And I went and filed some papers at the courthouse. And I just happened to walk by this door where a man we grew up with, Jimmy Smith's father, was a bailiff and was pushing Vance out the door. And he's hollering at him and cussing at this guy across the table. Oh. And Mr. Smith said, Vance, you need to go calm down.
Was that your client?
Yes, it was his client. He had abused a child while, you know, they put him on a video and put him in a room by himself. And he did something unspeakable
Oh my god!
And
he was in supervised visitation.
The guy who's
isn't that an idiot? He's in a supervised visitation and he abuses a kid.
And the guy who says he's entitled to the best defense, he can get is
Now,
willing to whoop his ass.
But wait a minute, that you don't usually get a client that while you're trying to help them commits a new offense.
Yeah,
I mean
on
video.
I understand, but it was a whole lot different. It was a whole lot different than the guy deserves the best defense.
Well, no,
how can you represent this guy? Well, he deserves the best defense.
Well, yeah, he modified his position.
That's right. Did he ever?
Well, I remember you coming home one time, and I remember, and this has stuck with me, is you said that some people, their only crime was they're just poor. Mm-hmm. They're poor people and they're uneducated, and they can't. This is all they can do. They have a lot of love for their child, but they can't.
This dude was
properly
sick.
take care of their child.
That
guy was crazy.
Well, now you're right about that because, well, one, I have to say, Vance, I had a better seat than you did at that table because I was the prosecutor and not defending. So it was better, but I unfortunately saw I don't want to give percentages, but cases because of poverty and the parents' own mental issues. And I won't even say that they were all mentally ill. Some of them were also MR, what we now call ID. I specifically remember a case of a lady, and I hated being in the seat that I was in that day because she had to put a kid. She had put one of her children on the bus because she had services. And she had an appointment. And she had another kid. And literally, the cognition of what do I do? And somebody was supposed to meet her to pick up her kid. She actually left a kid at the bus stop. But it sounds horrible, right? How do you leave a kid at the bus stop? The lady, her IQ was low. It's like sequencing. We take it for granted. You do this, then you do that. She was out of her depth of what to do. I don't think she really got the day the jury returned that termination. I just never forget this because I actually cried, not in the courtroom, but to myself because she said to the caseworker, well, now when will I get my next visit? And I thought, I don't think we just did the right thing here. She wasn't a child. There wasn't like a permanent placement you could put both the people in. But that was probably about the only case I ever did that I thought I didn't do justice today because this and now we know more about people's cognition and functioning and can get in better. But in the end, the children were suffering. There was a little kid that was left on a street corner,
right? And
only when the police picked it up and said, "My mother left me." I mean, and then there was this history, but to know that she didn't, we would now know that person would be, she was competent to understand, I'm the prosecutor and I have a lawyer, but there's she was not, she was MR.
Well, some people have left their children in cars before and forgot.
Right, and
that
they're not
back
MR.
there.
They're just that's distracted. I can't say mine are in college. So I would love to leave them in a car locked with the windows up a lot.
I hear you.
Right? Y'all can get that, right?
Can relate.
You were like, no, I'm just joking. I wouldn't do that. But no, I never had that happen. But busy, you get busy.
You get busy.
You get distracted.
And you're tired.
We forget how really tired you are. How many kids do y'all have?
3.
So y'all are really tripping. I only had 2. So I was only kind of tired.
I mean, you hear people say, I would never leave my kid in the back seat of the car.
Yeah.
Never say never because you just don't know.
No, I think you're right about that tired factor. You actually forget. Aaron and I are now on, Aaron's my husband, on when this December we'll get to the second full year of being empty nesters. And I now kind of remember like, I have choices what I can do in my day because even though they were in high school and they had cars, we were meeting at their sporting events or going to their stuff. Now they just write a check,
Yeah.
But go visit every once in a while. But yeah.
Well, I think it's a good time to ask you about something I saw too that I wanted to ask you about. Now, you gave Aaron your kidney.
Only one of them. I needed the other one.
Yeah, tell us about that. How that came about.
Aaron's my husband. He has a chronic kidney disease, and with the kind of kidney disease he has, I couldn't tell you the name of it. A nephrologist probably knows it's some kind of really acute chronic disease, and your kidney functioning goes dramatically down, which puts you on dialysis. Which anybody knows that's ever done that, it's not a pleasant thing. But for people that are healthy in all other ways, if they approve you, you get on transplant lists and you can get a cadaver or you can have a live donor. Well, we're not related because we're married and that'd be illegal. And we don't look anything alike. And I wasn't ever planning, because people think I'm so nice I gave him a kidney. I was never planning on giving him a kidney because I would have never thought we matched. But he had, back in, it's been 10 years in 2008. So I think he went on dialysis in 2006, and things were rocking along because, that's been he was 10 years younger, and he's doing good with dialysis, whatever that means. But something happened. He got his arm, his access got clotted, and I really realized, man, we don't need to just wait around passively. I mean, not only is it 12 hours out of your life, but we need to try to get somebody to donate him a kidney. And several people stepped up and said, sure. And in the process, a friend, I don't see her often at all, her name is Holly Schreier, she said, if you donated, I bet y'all would get more people interested in donating. I said, sure, you're right. Thinking, I'll put my name in the hat. It'll come back. We're not matched. The problem is, that's the problem with me not knowing my own blood type. So I'm O positive, which right there lets you know I'm a universal donor. So my statistics went up that I would be a match for almost anybody. So I did. And there's different tests that they do after they know that you can give. As an O, you can give. I think Aaron's a B, which is hard to find donors. And he and I matched. There were other tests, the second level of tests we did. But as far as doing that, I was glad I was able to do that. It changes your life. And, I mean, we're just doing all these plugs. But if anybody ever thinks that that's something they want to do, they should really check into it. If you have good health and you don't take any medications, you're not a diabetic or have high blood pressure, there are so many people that are waiting on list. And if we had more live donors, I think we have enough kidneys for people. Thank God, I've not had any side effects. My blood pressure hadn't gone up. Probably could lose some weight. That's why I always worry about that, because obviously you don't want to get high blood pressure. You don't want to tax the existing kidney I have. But yeah, it changed his life, which meant it changed our life.
And it happened on Valentine's Day?
It did. I didn't plan that. And if anybody, Baylor did the transplant, and later Aaron did a promotion for them. They'll get their donors to come, and we didn't get paid for it. Do a little plug. If you ever Google his name, the transplant will come up, and his tagline is, "She gave me a kidney on Valentine's Day. How do you top that?" That's his little tagline. So, yeah.
Well, he's he'll never be able to divorce you now. He's stuck. You got him.
He's stuck. I got him. I mean, that's a way to get a man,
Yeah,
ladies. If you want
right.
to get your man, make sure
Give up the kidney.
Give up the kidney. No, it's just it's a life changer. You hear that, but you don't really know how bad you feel, because you go to work and you make it happen for your family, and so I look back and I'm glad to do it. And if I knew what I knew now, even if I wouldn't have matched him, I would have been glad to give it to somebody else.
And Aaron's had no problems since then either.
Not the transplant. Sometimes you have to watch those numbers. And there's, I didn't know this. Kidneys have an average life of 10 to 12 years. Now, you'll hear some people go 20, and he's about at that mark. 20 years, 25 years, die from something else. Some people transplant and they reject, and they don't even they don't take that day. I mean, a person's given the kidney, they reject. Some people go 5 years. As it happens in my family, I have a cousin in California, and his son, who is a juvenile diabetic, needed a pancreas, a kidney, and a liver, and the pancreas and the liver from a cadaver worked, and the kidney rejected after 5 years. And then he was on a transplant list for 3 years, a long time, and now he got another kidney. So that's why it's not like a fixing it. So I told him I'm not giving any more kidneys. I'm done.
Sorry.
When he's done with that, when he needs a new one, God willing, some great person in the sound of my voice will donate, and because it's unfortunate if someone passes and you get a kidney that way. I know a lot of people have guilt about that, but you know, it's a big plan, and we're just playing in God's plan. Well, He knows what He's going to do. I only need one.
Well, let's get you back to Kaufman now.
Oh, I'm back in Kaufman. I'm back in No, I'm in Dallas. I'm in Dallas, and I'm doing DA stuff, and I've moved to Kaufman. And somebody says again, the power of suggestion and thinking I want to serve, and an opportunity. I decided to run for county court at law judge in Kaufman, and that was in the 2002 election. And I won. I was the youngest in that position that year running. So that was a few summers ago.
And in your book, you said you were the first African American to win a county-wide race in Kaufman County.
Yeah, some people said, Dallas had Larry Baraka and Faith Johnson, that's now the DA, was judges. But when you left and went that way, I don't think out in Hunt County, I don't know if there was an African-American DA east of Dallas, but there might have been. I don't know. I've never really known. So I kept it to something that I knew, that there was a commissioner that had his district that had been. And I think that was it. That's the only one that I ever knew of in my mind, even going back, because Kaufman, yeah. So, you don't even think about, you write that because when people edit your book, they'll say to you, well, was that the first time that happened? I'm like, well, I don't know. I'll go do a little. I mean, I didn't write all that in there originally. And I did know I was the first African-American female DA, but I really, that in context of being the first elected countywide was because my editor said, well, was that unique because she knew the latter about the DA? And I said, well, I think I would have been the only one.
Do you identify as Republican or Democrat?
I'm a Republican. So that was, don't take your headset off. Now, I didn't say one word. I pulled in right behind the car, and I saw your Beto sign on your cousin's truck. And I'm saying,
no, that's his truck. That's his truck.
It was your truck, see? I didn't hit it or throw anything at it. I
We
thought
can all get along here.
He's, as long as we don't have to, I'll say this in Kaufman, for whatever it's worth. And that is an interview for another time if I get invited back, because we're just running through the chronology in the book. That was an interesting election, because not only that's how, I don't know if that was just because I was a woman thing. I try not to do that identity thing or color thing, but I ran against a Democrat, and he did not take that win lightly. So I won by 403 votes. I can still remember that after 12 years. Couldn't do an election contest. It was too many votes. I did not get that seat for a year later. He was allowed to be the holdover judge, and I was sued with the TRO 2 days later, and I did not get to sit. And there's a whole long story about that. And I don't know if it's book worthy. I know him, Joe Parnell. He's not a bad guy. He thought he had a good legal reason for me not to sit. Probably if you boil it down to it, he might have. But our problem was, once the voters spoke, you kind of really, your issue, when you boil down what the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court said, you no longer had standing to complain. So I learned a lot. And that's what I'm saying. I think, because my dad's a yellow dog Democrat, and he votes in the Republican primary for me, and I believe differently than him on certain things, but we all get along. He was very disappointed by the Democrat Party in Kaufman County and the tack they took when it was their mission to not have me take my seat. So sometimes, politics aside,
Gender or race, you think?
I don't know. I think it was
Both?
changing. I think it was changing of the guard. Nobody else had the problems I had, I'll just say. And to be fair, it was a residency issue. And, you know, as I said, I was born and raised there, and I had lived in Dallas for a while and had come back, and nobody raised residency. And I think by his calculation, I was 2 months short. But I had been there, so it was, I'd lived there for 22 months, and he said it was 2 months short. So, you know, nobody, we hear people throw that around. How many congressmen don't even live in the district? No, it's different. You want your local people to live in the district, and you're just a carpetbagger if you're moving around. But I do not consider myself somebody that was born and raised there, that stayed there most summers, and even with the kids, and stayed at the house and came out of Dallas. It was kind of a, I don't know if I should use profanity, a chicken shit way to throw that race.
Everything goes in this art
you're
form.
you're okay with that.
Well, I'm just saying it was chicken.
Mm-hmm.
It's chicken, in case kids want to hear it. But it's fine. I'm gonna tell you something though. I learned a lot. You never have an experience, even if it's bad. You learned a lot. But I loved serving that court. County Court at Law in Kaufman is one of those unique statutory courts that has jurisdiction like a felony court, and they do that. And your statutory courts were set up, and you could have what's very common in county courts with limitations at $200,000 or $250,000, and your as far as monetary. But mine was unlimited, so I would hear really interesting civil cases. I had family jurisdiction, and I went back. I think it helped that my background in Dallas, since I've amassed this time in Dallas, that I did more than criminal in Dallas. It really helped because I was now the presiding CPS and juvenile judge. And so they would appeal our masters, which was our cluster court, those people that would come out and hear cases. Then they would appeal those, and I'd get those. So that bench kept me really busy for 10 years. And I think I love that court because it was like the people's court. You'd get JP appeals, but then you would do a case in controversy with unlimited. I had a big oil case one time. I can't tell you how many millions were involved in that. So, and of course your regular criminal docket, which was primarily misdemeanors. And I think because I had been a felony DA, I did a lot of the state jail felonies and the felony DWIs. Yeah. So, I mean, every day was fun.
Something different every day.
It was not boring. And I know people in a lot of county courts get bored, but I never did.
All right. Now, let's bring you up to January the 30th.
Yeah.
Of 2013. Tell our 2 or 3 listeners.
Well, it's going to be 5 for sure.
be
Because
5.
Aaron and I are tuning in. We are tuning in when you tell me.
Yeah.
And it's going to be more. You're getting a following. I was in court, or actually I was in chambers, which is in my office outside of the courtroom, and it was early. It was 8:30 to 8:45, and we were just talking about. Can't believe I had to do the CPS case, and it was. I guess that was a Wednesday. We were figuring out how long, because once you're in third day of trial, you're like, how long is this going to go? And if I had one party, I had 6 parties. I had 2 daddies, a grandmama, and granddaddy, and mama, and interveners. And I had 6 people. I had a flow chart. When you start writing people down and their attorneys, you got too many attorneys and parties. And I did. And I was talking to my bailiff, and we thought we heard something. Just that simple. And then you could look. The courthouse is old, and so we still have windows. And we're on the courthouse square, and we looked out the window. We just saw the movement of something, people moving, running. I remember my bailiff. he handed me his coffee, and he got on his radio, and nobody was on the radio. You know, people are trying to be professional, but sometimes you just do what you do. And later on, we learned that Mark Hasse had been killed. Oh man, that was unbelievable. I remember doing things you wouldn't normally do, you know, going out telling the parties not that we were going to recess, that something had come up. I told the DAs to go upstairs. Their boss, I'm sure, needed to talk to them. Then I went to the jury room and said, your bailiff is busy, and I know, but I could tell from the look on their eyes that they were on their phones, and they knew already. And I lose a little time right there because I don't know how long things went on before somebody came in and confirmed that Mark was dead, not just that he was shot. And
tell him how he got shot and where.
Mark got shot in the parking lot. He was Mark Hasse is just a little background. Mark was a Dallas prosecutor. Mark's in that generation before. I started in '90. He was there in the '80s, so he's about 10 years ahead of us. So that was 5 years ago. So he was in his late 50s. He was a bachelor. He kind of did things methodically the same way. He drove in. He parked his car in the same place in the same area. It was cool. Obviously, January 30th, he had an overcoat on. He always carried a concealed weapon. He was a certified peace officer. He was armed. He never got his weapon. He had his briefcase in his hand, and he was killed no more than 50 yards away, maybe 100 at the most, but you can, it's behind what we call the courthouse annex. So from where the building would have been to the next building was 20 yards. In a crowd, and meaning people were milling around. It was a lot of activity. It was a busy, busy day, and it was bold. That's the thing. I think that was Thursday. It was so bold.
It was like a masked person.
Yeah,
nobody knew who it was.
The town square.
The town square behind, so like a parking area behind the town square. It was the town square. Y'all are putting visual to it. It's the town square because I'm thinking about it. It's the town square. It's busy court dockets, busy court days. You got police cars parked in what was the old square lots. You had people walking around. You had people on the street. There's businesses across the street. I can envision the car repair guy across the street, and then there's the court annex. So people are coming and going. A guy steps out that's masked in dark clothes with the mask over his face and a hoodie up over his head and shoots him at point-blank range, execution style. They talked. It has been said that they exchanged words before he killed him. So Mark knew who it was, his killer was. And he killed him. Immediately, and he got back in the car, drove away, and was not stopped. He got away with it. I think Eric Williams would have gotten away with killing Mark Hasse if he wouldn't have killed Mike and Cynthia. Because he had planned that. People did go and investigate that. The city of Kaufman had that crime scene because it was away from the courthouse. And they did talk to him. He had an alibi. He had his hand in a sling, his arm in a sling. He had some kind of frozen shoulder story concocted. He wore gloves, so when they did a GSR, he didn't have any gunshot residue. He was ready for that one.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, tell him who Eric Williams was. Or is, I guess he
is because he's alive, but how he was professionally, it makes him a very unlikely. We were talking a minute ago about people that are not educated and that are, have intellectual disability. This guy doesn't fit the profile, which I guess makes you matter. He's one of those guys you could dig into prosecuting. Eric Williams was a CPS attorney, did attorney at Lottom work. I actually believe he might even been board certified in family law, and he was an attorney. He graduated from Texas Wesleyan, the former Texas Wesleyan, in one of their first classes, and was a guy that you would think that studied hard and worked hard because he wanted to change and better himself. I think he had, when I was in Dallas, worked around the courthouse for other judges and other attorneys and was known. And then he advanced from there to running for JP and keeping his practice, but being the JP. So the justice of the peace is who killed him, but the reason that they were in his crosshairs, for lack of a better word, was because he had been caught previously, or the year, because that was January in the previous year, of stealing computer equipment as the JP. And Mark and Mike and Mike prosecuted him. And this was clearly a vendetta killing. We didn't know that at the time, but it was.
Was he from that area?
People ask me that. I don't think he was like that, like the way you guys are from here and I'm from Kaufman. He's not, but he'd been there for a good length of time. Because now I kind of remember people said his testimony. But he's an Eagle Scout. I hadn't heard that. He's an Eagle Scout. I don't want to 100% say that he was, I think he was a Boy Scout. He's definitely a Mensa because he'd tell you that anytime. But he might have been an Eagle Scout. He was Boy because he liked to hunt and all that stuff. This is a person that you just have to say he is not a classic, but he is clearly was a sociopath and is, because who he seems is not who he is. In fact, I heard a psychologist call him a malignant injustice collector. So whenever slights had been done to him, the things that we take nothing about, somebody would cut us off driving, he's going to get you back. Because I always had to.
What'd you call him? Never heard those words put together.
I hadn't either, and I might be garbling it because I'm not a psychologist. He called him a malignant, which we'd go with malignant because that's pretty bad. He's evil. A malignant injustice collector. That's the kind that we can Google it kind of later. His profile.
So he held a grudge.
There you go. And it's on that. It's hard to find somebody that would score as high as he was as far as psychopathy on that hair exam that they do. People, he's up there, man.
So this happened January the 30th of 2013.
Right.
And you were the judge.
I was the judge.
And for 2 months, well, in the book you reference that you and your husband first really said
he
immediately
did.
Eric Williams.
He did. Aaron did. I always hated as a wife that he was right. He really did. He had thought it was Eric, and he really was afraid for me because just like this, and the reason that injustice collector's person that is, it's his set of values of how he thinks he's been messed over. So as the judge, I had dealings with him doing the CPS because he had overbilled the county. So this was something that my husband said, this is a guy that's going to be a problem. I mean, really, he pegged it. Like I said, I sometimes think, it couldn't be that bad. We've hung out with this person, not like hung out like we're sitting here, but he's been in similar social settings that we've been in.
It was just hard to believe. It's
hard to
get your
believe.
mind around it.
Yeah, it was for me.
He had everything going for him.
But he never had any type of violent.
Well, in the trial, evidence came out, and maybe that he had an episode with a woman that he dated before he married his wife. And it kind of got swept under the rug. And if you read a little bit about the case, so in punishment, when they put it on prior evidence about his conduct, there was a woman, I don't know if I can't remember the facts. I'll just say that they were dating. She broke up with him. That was at that time when they were both court coordinators, and they were at a court coordinators conference, and it was clear that he wasn't done dating her, and he either held her, I don't want to say he sexually assaulted her, but he either assaulted her or held her against her will. And so I don't want to say kidnap. I don't want to say make it bigger than it was. But she came forward and described that incident. It was a flash. It was in another county, but we were hearing something very aggressive, and it was him. She dated him. She knew him. She knew where it happened. She reported it immediately. He was detained, but maybe because of who he was and who his friends were, it was like, we'll get him from your county, and you'll never see from this guy again. And charges did not go forward.
You really think this guy was a member of Mensa?
I always wonder. I mean,
I think when people have to talk about it,
I'm kind of with you. That's me and my husband. We always say that if you got to brag about
Yeah.
that, if people don't recognize you and go, you are just really smart.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Just
Mensa.
to tell you that I
Right.
am smart.
I agree with you. I mean, there's Reader's Digest Mensa, right? But you can all cheat and flip the answers upside down, and then there's real Mensa. So, but you know what though? I have to give him this. He was smart, but he was too smart for his own good, because he really, think about it, after the trial and after he was found guilty of the theft, we, as attorneys, you can go to the bar and beg for forgiveness and move towns. And even when you did, he had so many stops along the way to get off the crazy train, but he just kept bearing down.
Yeah, he was offered a deal, wasn't he?
He was offered
Where he
a
could have
deal.
kept his license, but he just
Well, I
wouldn't
think
do
the licensing had more to do with the state bar. But as far as if you don't have a felony and a final conviction, you've got a real good carrot to tell the bar, I don't know what you're going to tell them. I had a crazy moment, but I did take this deal, and I really want to keep practicing. And I think he could have put his life back together.
He just chose not to.
I think he had.
So 2 months go by from January 30th to March 31st.
Yes, you got the dates.
And
And then the unspeakable, really, because I hate to say it, because you really got to a point where you thought, maybe that was a stranger that passed through and killed Mark. Maybe it was just too weird. But we were at a party on a Saturday night. It was like this weather, but it was March. It was the flip of this. It was the spring, and we were out. We were drinking wine and just talking, and it was a great night. And I just remember everything stopped because my coordinator called me and wanted to know where I was, because they were trying to get a count of all the countywide officials. And that's when I was told, when I could understand her, about Mike and Cynthia were killed in their home. And really, I will promise you, not only at that party, but for the next 10 days, all hell broke loose. I mean, the helicopters, the snipers on the roof at Mike and Cynthia's wedding, the security
funeral,
details.
you mean funeral?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, those are almost sentences.
No,
Oh my
gosh. No, that was just a mistake. That was a mistake. I was saying something happy.
No,
at
we
their
we
funeral.
understand.
Yeah, we knew exactly what you were
No,
talking
but
about.
just in case your listeners think I'm nuts, it was at their funeral, their sad memorial
Awful,
service,
just awful.
that they had snipers, because we didn't know. And as well, it's surreal when you look back. The bodyguards, the security details.
Tell them who Mike and Cynthia were.
Mike was the elected DA. Mike tried the case with Mark, which I think put him as somebody that he wanted to kill. Mike
Tried the Eric Williams case.
tried the Erleigh Williams case, and that was somebody else that Eric, once I think he started, he was going to work down that list, that fictional list, or that non-written list that he had. But he had one. He being Mike was a different kind of DA. He came to the job later in life. He was a military man. He was very organized. His wife and him were grandparent age, and they were, he loved being the DA. He would still be the DA. His wife would bake and bring things up to the office. Mike wasn't this hard-charging trial guy that had worked in Dallas or Harris County or Ellis County and tried a lot of cases. He was somebody that wanted to, when things had changed in Kaufman, to make a difference, to have a place people could feel proud to work. And he brought that integrity to the position.
Pull that down a little bit.
He-
Still not getting very.
Let me sit up. he brought that integrity
There it is.
to the position. Yeah, it's a little low before. And Mike was a good guy. We all knew him in the county. He'd have this Christmas party, and we'd all go. And he and Cynthia loved to entertain. And I'll tell you, she loved him. I mean, they married. Now I got weddings. I can get this right. They married. When they married and met each other later in life. So there was a lot of affection in that relationship. You could see it.
And how were they killed?
They were killed brutally in their home. Cynthia appears that she opened the door, was in the doorway. They were killed we think it was probably in the early morning on Saturday the 31st. And they just weren't found until later when they were not heard from and people had called. So they were gunned down in their home. It was Easter weekend. And Mike had always also said he thought it was Eric and he was prepared for an intruder. But they had gathered up all their handguns because it was Easter and they were having an Easter egg hunt. So when the assailant that we now know was Eric came into the house, I think Mike was heading to the back to get where his guns were. And he was shot many, many times with an AR high caliber assault rifle. Cynthia was shot one last time on the way out with a headshot. It wasn't obviously as personal with her. She took less rounds, but enough to end her life. Mike took many, many more. It was personal. It was vicious. It was over 15 times he was shot.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was horrific. No one deserved to die like that.
And so, how does a DA's office, the system, work when, say, a DA passes away?
Well, actually, believe it or not, it's codified. If you have a vacancy like that, and because of the high profileness of it, we as judges and other county officials were in the county judge's office. The governor's office can get you on the phone. They can find you when they need you. And they were making sure that we had an interim to take the position. We had a great lady step up to take the position. And then they had to have an appointment because it's a criminal district attorney position. It's an appointment by the governor, not by the county commissioners, because it's a state position. And there was the process, and I took that job after I was appointed.
All right, and that's the subject of your book over there, A Target on My Back.
It is.
Let me see that.
Here you go.
Well, then in the process of, after all that happened, you found out you were on his
You need to go
list.
at 3.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm just checking. Yeah, I'm good. We can wind it up. We're good.
All right, it said it's A Target on My Back, a prosecutor's terrifying tale of life on a hit list by Erleigh Wiley. And you can find this at Amazon
You
or
can.
anywhere books are sold.
Or anywhere. Well, anywhere books are sold, yeah. But, a smaller public, Amazon's the best way. Because I know it's at Barnes & Noble, but sometimes if they run out, we only print a small amount. Yeah. But go ahead and buy as many as you want. We can print some more. We can get you more. But you're right about the hit list. I think that's the twist, is going back to my husband being right. So it was one thing to take the job, and I wanted to. I think it went back to who my parents were, serving people who I like to think that I am. People always say, "Oh, you're so brave." I was like, I think I was just stupid. You don't really think through things. But I have to say, it really did startle or get my attention when the special prosecutor, Bill Worski, who tried that case along with Toby, shook, and many other people that volunteered their time that's in that picture in that book, in the insert, that when he told me that in debriefing Kim, who testified against her husband, Kim was his partner in crime, literally. She was a co-defendant. She drove in the car. She drove with him in both times. That she testified, not knowing what, if any, deal she would get, said, yes, there was a hit list. And so Bill, being the astute lawyer he is, was who was next. And her statement was Erleigh Wiley, and that's what she told the jury when the case was transferred to Rockwall. And I was actually called in the case in punishment because I think if I'd have to guess, and I'm sure we've talked about it, they wanted to just position her statement, talking about all the things they did, were preparing in the case and the crime and all of that, what they did, and have Kim lay that out. And in a capital murder to prove future danger, that there was somebody else. And who was that? And it was Erleigh Wiley. And then I just testified. You know, you get to ask the questions most of the time, but I answered them, and Toby called me as a witness, asked me about why he might have a vendetta about the pay sheets, asked me about my relationship with him and how I knew him and who he was in the community, and about me and my husband and the kids all living there at the house.
I'm not sure you have told him about the pay sheets.
Yeah, I'll tell him.
Yeah, did she mention it earlier?
I just mentioned it, but just a little bit. I think that's just kind of, I'm just trying to think, because I want to make sure I wrote in the book, but even more accurate is, why would he want to kill me? I mean, really? Let's not be paranoid. There's no reason why Eric would want to kill me, except our paths crossed as I did work as a presiding judge over CPS and juvenile. The commissioners, as well as other people in the community, and I say other people like other lawyers, were complaining, we're not getting any work. Why is this guy getting all the work? And then looking at the increase in bills. And it didn't take a rocket scientist. I randomly pulled some pay sheets, and my coordinator spent some time going over them, and we were able to realize that this was some really egregious overbilling. I often wonder, I've said this when I've done, because, it's interesting how it can work into an ethics CLE about overbilling and not following the canons of the law, and does this lead to this? Of course not. This guy has a loose screw, and not mental, like the loose screws that he's a psychopath or a sociopath and he thinks he can do what he wants. But, would it have changed if somebody would have said, you can't do what you did to that woman, she's done with you, your relationship is over? Would that have stopped this trajectory? If when we found out the pay sheets and the overbilling, which was excessive. I'm not talking about somebody saying, I talked 10 minutes more on the phone. I'm talking accumulation of a year of maybe 100 to 200,000 of overbilling that we were able to project. We're not 100% sure of that number over a year or two that it was overdone. We know the amount he billed individually, and he had a lot of those cases. So we were able to see that. Me, you know what it's like when you talk to judges. I think I'm nice. I'm like, we're not having any more of this, and you need to stop it. I'm not going to refer this to the DA's office. You just keep. I thought I was doing him a favor. What I did was just take him off. And what he did, that was the weird connection I think he did about, is he didn't tell me, he told my court coordinator that he's wanted to get off the appointment wheel. If he can't do it the way he wants and bill the way he wants it, he's not going to do the work. Well, that economics degree or that finance degree helped. I'm like, this is supply and demand. We will fill the gap because lawyers will come in and do this work. And they did. And he spited himself.
Yeah, cut your nose off your face
There
to
you go.
spite yourself.
That was what he did. And when it all kept rolling and people were taking the work and he wasn't getting any and he wasn't getting work walking in on the street, I think that injustice collector said, that lady, if I ever start, I'm going to get her.
And he's billing the county, correct?
Yeah,
He's
that's why it's
that-
important,
that's
because
the pay sheet.
he could bill people anything he wanted, they
Yeah.
wanted to play. It'd be between him, them,
Yeah.
and the state bar. The only reason I cared is that we had, in an accumulation of 3 years with his billing, close to $500,000, which this guy, Vance, can tell you from doing that work, even if he had 20, 30 cases, you don't make money like that at, 80 out of court and 95 in court. I mean, you can't make money like that. Mm-hmm. It's not a money maker. Mm-hmm. Please believe me. You try to get 3 or 4 of them so you can, not waste your time and be over there and bill, but you're only billing by the hour, not by the case.
And now I want to go back to the timing when you took the appointment from the DA's office. We're talking 11 days or so from the killing of Mike McLelland.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, you got it. It was 11 days.
And so at this point, no one has been arrested for either the Mark Hasse killing or the Mike McLelland or Cynthia McLelland killings.
That's correct.
And so 11 days after the sitting criminal district attorney for Kaufman County and his wife were gunned down in their home, you stood up and said, I'll replace and take his job.
I did. I know. It really makes me sound like I'm either crazy or something, but I did. And I you know what it was? It's I think it's called righteous anger. I think you're like, think about y'all are from here, and you might as well be from here. You've been here all your life. Your kids went to school here.
That still don't count, though.
You don't count? Okay, well, and that somebody you can see the people that you've known your life at the store, and they're scared, and people are not going out and doing what they do normally. And there was just something about feeling like your hometown, because my hometown's not Forney, it's Kaufman. It wasn't where people felt safe anymore. And it kind of just had that feeling of, I'm the person that can do this. These people know me. I've been a Dallas DA. I'm a judge. I can do this. That was it. It wasn't, and I'm glad that they did catch him the next day, because he really had some hating on for me. But I have to say that Homeland and the other people that watched us, I don't think he would have come around. We would have saved the county a hell of a lot of money on a trial, because they were very serious. Well,
tell them a little. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
You can. You're trying to get me to make my next appointment.
Yeah, that's what you say.
Yeah, we're good.
Tell them a little bit. I know you got to go about the Homeland Security detail. You talk about a lot in the book, and
it was different. It's not cool having somebody watch your every move. I mean, it's not. You got to get used to that. It's like if I had security, they'd be out there, but before they came in, they would have said, "Mr. Vance, can we walk around your house and we're going to make sure?" So there's a loss of privacy, but this had actually got on the radar. I can't say that Barack Obama, as the president, knew about this, but I am sure someone in his office had been briefed, because Homeland Security and some of the FBI and other federal partners were given the green light that they were going to be in Kaufman County to be part of a security detail. So it had gone beyond a state story. I mean, the Governor Perry had come to Kaufman to assuage, I think is the way you say it, make us calm. But I think it had gotten higher, because you have to get a green light from somebody in D.C., and everybody was concerned about this. People just don't shoot prosecutors. And so we had, as our detail, Homeland Security. And it's a 24-hour shifts of 3, and they were serious people. And even if you try to give them food, or they're like, "Oh, we're fine," water, they might take water bottles. They would come, they'd walk the perimeter, they set up equipment. We had a lot of people thinking there was activity. It was a bunch of jackrabbits, because we're in Forney, the home of the jackrabbits. Mm-hmm. So, they're serious people. When I think they might have known, or when right after the 11th, actually on the 12th, that first search warrant broke, we had them for 3 weeks. After I'd accepted the appointment on the 11th, even though the process didn't happen afterwards, things had got more relaxed. We all knew once Eric was arrested for the terroristic threat, that they were just building their case. So that's how that was. But it was a tense 10 days, a really tense 10 or 11 days.
Now, I know we got to get you out of here. What happened in the trial? What was the outcome?
That's a good question, because sometimes I forget to tell people that. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that's important. The conclusion of this is Eric Williams was the defendant charged and was tried for the murder of Cynthia McLelland. There are still 2 pending, not going to be tried, right now, of Mike and Mark Hasse, Mike McLelland. In punishment, they put on the evidence about the other murders, but the jury, after hearing the case, found him guilty of capital murder, and in punishment, they answered 2 questions, in such a way that he was a future danger and that there was no mitigation for him to not be, there was no mitigating evidence. And the answer to those two questions in Texas results in a death penalty or a death verdict. And he is on death row, and he is a citizen of the state on death row and awaiting execution. His state case has already gone through that appeal, and there's a writ or a capital writ practice that will continue up until his execution date and until he's executed. But 9-0, which is all of the justices, affirmed the trial court's decision in the Texas appellate process.
He's still got to go through up to the Supreme Court, I guess.
He's right, and he's before he gets there, he's going to do the whole writ thing. He's got to go to New Orleans first for the 5th. Yeah, he's got a whole lot, and some local. I don't know exactly where it is, except it's a process, but one that we need when you're executing someone. I know that he's guilty. I know if you believe in the death penalty, this is a guy that deserves it. But I understand the process when people are frustrated with it. You are asking for the highest penalty. You better make sure you got it right. But if anybody's listening, they got the right guy.
And we need to make a determination that this is Eric Williams, crazy white dude from Kaufman County, not the ex Dallas Cowboy, Eric Williams.
Yeah, you're right.
That played for the left tackle for the Dallas Cowboys.
I like that distinction. No, he didn't look nothing like him, and he had no talent like that.
Every time you said Eric Williams, I was thinking, I think football.
I understand,
not
man.
Crazy.
No, you're not crazy.
Not crazy dude.
Not crazy white dude. No, he was. He is. He still is.
Well, and Kim
Williams. To finish, the other Kim testified against Eric in the trial, in the punishment phase of the trial. After the trial, she pled to 40 years, which means it's 40 years for capital murder. It's an aggravated offense. She'll do 20 years. So while we're aging here on the outside, she will be too. So she'll be 60-something before she's eligible for parole. Wow. Some people thought that was too light, but that was what was agreed upon by the special prosecutor and her, and she was willing to accept it. She admitted, I didn't watch the trial because I was told when they found out about the list that I might be subject to being called, so I didn't want to, listen to the trial. But after I've heard what people said and watched it, Kim took total ownership of her role. And I think that really helped more than anything. Not only, and with her testimony, she was able to help them locate evidence in Lake Tawakoni, which was an amazing find. But she was able to show where they threw that mask, and he had put it all in a mesh bag and thrown it. But you know what that's like, how murky Lake Tawakoni is, any lake, and it's shifting sands. But she helped direct some of that investigation, as well as give open testimony and didn't say, he made me do it. I just think that it was clear that she was under his spell, and if he hurt, she hurt, and that was her lifelong. At the time, she was also, and admitted as well, she liked her hydrocodone, so she had a lot of opioids for a condition that didn't require that.
They found a car too, didn't they?
They found the car
in storage.
They found that. That's when that case started breaking. Once they were able to get the search warrant and find the vehicle of the car, and then use the name, even though it was a fake name, and because he made mistakes, and they were able to find that one of the bullets in the trajectory, even though he'd thrown away part of that gun, the upper on the gun on that AR, that you were able to use one of the expelled projectiles, a bullet. It was a 5.57, I think.
All right. Before we close up, anybody you want to give a shout out to? Anybody you want to thank?
Well, I just want to thank y'all. Y'all are great. I love it. I feel like I've just sucked wanted to hear y'all say something, but I appreciate it. Y'all keep it going.
That's interesting.
This is a great format. I think I'm going to start pod listening. So I'm going to have to bother you later, Vance. You tell me where I need to start listening, because it's a great way to hear interesting stories, people that can tell us something and learn some things. I guess I'll give a shout out to the Kaufman County DA's office, because they are one of the best organizations to work with. The people that were there kept coming back to work, even though their boss and one of the chief felony DAs, they were killed, and they kept coming back to work. Good people that believe in doing what's right for justice, and they really never gave up their mission. They were a little, there was a little post-traumatic stress going on, but they wanted to stay with it. Very few. We didn't lose people because of this situation. You'd think somebody would say, maybe there might have been one person, but it was also her husband was getting a job somewhere else. So I don't think we lost anybody because of this. And of course, I would be remiss not to mention Mike, Mark, and Cynthia's families. By allowing me to even be able to talk about it means that they had a great loss. We can't ever forget the victims of crime. No one deserved that. They didn't do anything. Cynthia's only crime was to love a man and be home with him, and Mark and Mike didn't do anything but prosecute somebody that broke the law. The jury sentenced him. So I always think about them because I get to tell the story and I'm alive. And so I feel sorry for them and their families because they miss them, because Cynthia, is a grandmother now, and she wasn't then. And so
I know that guy's crucial to your point of your story. I just don't like it when we bring their names up. When we did the tower shooter guy out of Austin.
I got you. Why give his name?
Yeah, I don't like.
I'll remember the next time.
I don't like making him famous.
So what do we call him? So I'll know if I ever do it again, because I like that.
Crazy white dude.
Crazy white
dude.
Sociopath.
Yeah.
The sociopath. Yeah. The bag dude. I hate to call everybody by color.
I know it was germane to your story.
But it's also, you're right. You could just say the killer.
I don't like using their names.
I think that's wise.
That's what they're after a lot of times. I think
you're wise. Because we'll do it this way. This guy, to let you know that he liked the fame, when they were coming to Kaufman, the newscasters, believe it or not, he was the one that was being interviewed. And he was saying things. You go and look at it. Oh, I feel so sorry for them.
I remember
and that. He was on like a Segway creeper.
It is weird.
But it's back to what you're saying. You're right. He liked the attention.
He liked the fame. That's what they're after.
Yeah. Well, this was fun. Fun. Not fun, the
thank
story,
y'all.
but fun.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming.
Of course.
Hey, don't forget to get her book if you want to learn about her time on a hitman's list. I guess you'd call him a hitman, but on the psychopath's list to be killed. She was next up, and the balls it took for her to step up there and become a criminal district attorney, the first female African American criminal district attorney in the state of Texas, and she did it under such duress and under such frightening times. And we would just thank her for her service to the state, to the county of Kaufman, and we thank her for being here today and participating in this podcast. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you. You're fine.
I ask you, how many of us would step up knowing that the killer's still out there, knowing that we have husbands, wives, kids, a life to live, knowing that we could be next on that at the end of a gun to be killed, step up and do what's right for our community. Judge Wiley is definitely extra usual. And I want to thank Judge Wiley for coming out to the podcast and letting us interview her and learn her life story and learn about her extraordinary extraordinary decision to put herself in harm's way and step into that role and take charge of that office under those circumstances. I mean, it's just an unbelievable act of valor and courage, and it's not something you would hope that you yourself could do something like that, but I don't know how. I don't know. You don't know how you would act into that situation, but we know how Judge Wiley would act because she did act, and she stuck up and took charge and saw the prosecution through. I know that her office didn't handle it; they had outside prosecutors, but she was participated in the trial, and I think in her book she even says she was the last witness to testify in Eric Williams's trial. So. Thank you, Judge Wiley, for coming, and we really appreciate y'all listening. Again, if you get a chance, buy our book on Amazon, A Target on My Back, Prosecutor's Terrifying Tale of Life on a Hit List, by Erleigh Wiley. Buy the book. It's a great read. It's a fantastic story. It's almost like reading a novel. So, Judge Wiley, thank you again, and we'll leave you with some more of Dylan Sauer's music. Thank you for listening.